What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Jordan was doing a little dance when the music was going. You wanna replicate it for the viewers, or you want to keep that
No,
to yourself?
honestly, it's just the pre-show music. It's
Come on,
not.
that was a lot of fun. You can save it for the Jimmy Buckets dance whenever you decide to do that again.
That's right. Yeah, when we're going with the finals, I'll do that.
We're talking about what is it? Game 4 of the NBA Finals here. LA taking the 3-1 lead in the series, bouncing back after Miami's Game 3 win, despite the fact that Bam Adebayo did play yesterday and had a pretty solid game. Dragic was sort of a late scratch right before. I don't know if you saw the videos of him like sort of pre-game warming up and trying to get out there. It's kind of brutal to see. Like, I think it looked like he was about to cry. I don't know if he actually was crying or not.
It looked like he had tears in his eyes. I felt terrible for him.
Yeah, I did too. And like there's been interviews with him and whatnot where he's talking about like there's nothing you can really do about it. It sucks the timing, but it's good that his teammates have his back and they're going out there and fighting as hard as any other team did. And if you look at yesterday's game, 102-96 being the final score, this was a Lakers win, but Miami kind of controlled this game in that I think they made LA play a very sloppy, dirty style of basketball that we have not seen LA play up to this point. LA likes to play in transition. They're a pretty smooth team with their LeBron and AD running it. But yesterday they got down and dirty with Miami, and Miami, there was such a low-scoring first half, pretty low-scoring game for both of these teams in general, especially LA. But Miami just, they made them grind it out, and it was a really tough fought game. It was a fun game to watch, especially in that second half. The first half was a little bit sloppy, a little ugly, but the second half, both teams kind of put it together, and it ended up being a really tight, contested game at the end. Even Miami took the lead at one point towards at the end of the fourth quarter. It was just a good watch and a good basketball game, and I'm hoping, even though I am rooting for LeBron to kind of take and I guess the Lakers to win this series. I'm hoping we get more games like this moving forward, and it does push to 6 or 7 games because it was just a lot of fun to watch this, and we hadn't gotten a game, I think, of this quality in terms of enjoyment and excitement in this series so far. But what do you think coming out of this 3-1 up now?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, you could say pretty much the best game of the series, considering the fact that we did have Bam back for Miami, and I thought he played pretty well. Really, all things considered, he didn't look too, wounded really on either end of the floor. Gave them much needed energy boost and kind of a spiritual boost, really. And obviously, with the game being the closest, I think point-wise, especially now you said down to the wire in the fourth, you had them trading shots there for the lead. Thankfully, LA was able to make, it's kind of what we talked about on Monday. I think it was going to be a close game. It's going to come down to who executed more. And Lakers did just a little bit better when it was needed in the fourth than the Heat did, including 2 big plays by Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, of all people. Can't say I would have bet on him to do that, but they made plays down the stretch. It was a completely sloppy first half. You're completely right in saying like Miami really forced LA to play like their kind of style of basketball, and it's not something that LA has been very good at because they haven't had to do it all year. They've usually been able to control at least the tempo and the type of play each game, no matter who their opponent is. But Miami did a really good job, I think, of dictating how things were going to go. I mean, that first half was brutal. I mean, LeBron, he had 8 points, 5 turnovers, he was 3-8. He looked kind of lost. Some of his passes were mind-bogglingly bad, and obviously some of the other guys too, like Rondo. They had so many turnovers that were just turnovers happen, especially in Miami. They're active, they work hard, they're going to force turnovers. But some of them were bad. Some of them were just lazy passes out of bounds, not being able to pass into the post, things that they were dumbfounding. They were really frustrating to watch because you're a professional basketball team. You should be able, it's just effort really at that point in making those plays. So thankfully Lakers cleaned it up in the second half. And in the fourth quarter, and really the second half in general, LeBron played a much better second half, I thought, kind of asserted himself. He got himself going with those like deep threes. And normally I'd be like, well, just go to the rim, get yourself going that way. But for him, that worked, and he kind of seemed to feed off of it. Anthony Davis, was big down the stretch. Obviously, the kind of the closing three, the one that put it really out of reach, the dagger over Bam, and then the subsequent block of, I think it was Jimmy Butler, right?
Yes, Jimmy Butler,
tried to drive in.
Yes.
So 2 big plays by him. LeBron with some big rebounds late and some key passes. Like a pass to Caldwell-Pope in transition and the big hit by him. So they made the plays they needed to. Knock down their free throws late, and they put themselves in the position that they want to be in. If 3-1 is, for all the jokes that have been made all bubble, and, LeBron has certainly been on the other side of the 3-1 deficit before in the finals. I'm sure he's thrilled to be up there, and he's looking to close it out, come Friday. So they have to feel good about it. As for Miami, I think they played a decent game overall. Jimmy wasn't obviously as spectacular as he was in Game 3, but that's also to be expected. LA kind of switched on him. They put Anthony Davis on him for spurts, which I think bothered him just because Davis is so lanky and athletic. And some of the other guys didn't quite maybe step up the way that they needed to. But nonetheless, it was a close game. I'm hoping they get Bam back for Friday. Or not Bam, Dragic, back for Friday. As we talked about, he tried to get going before the game. He's out on the court. He had this huge knee brace, which is, you see that and you feel bad for the guy, knowing this is his first finals and he's now having to deal with an injury like that, and he just couldn't give it a go. So I'm hoping with these 2 days he's able to go. As it would probably make it more difficult for the Lakers, but I like to see both teams at full strength. I don't want to cheapo in that kind of way. I don't want to win like that. So hopefully everybody's healthy. Hopefully LA can close it out. But let's you're gonna talk about your boy AD. For all the chitter chatter, he didn't have like the most explosive game. He didn't have the most dominant game box score wise. But I thought he was better defensively. He had some key blocks, especially the one down the stretch against Jimmy and the dagger three. He's not an amazing 3-point shooter. You look at his stats, like they're just very average especially for a big guy. But I feel like, and I don't have the stats to back it up, I just feel like watching the games this year, he hits them late. And I don't know what it is, but call it clutch, call it whatever you want. He does hit big 3-pointers late. And that's what he did. As soon as he shot it, I was like, I felt a little off about it. But nothing but net. LeBron was pumped. So let's give a little credit to your boy. I was thinking about it. We've had obviously the whole debate. This discussion between us has been like AD is a superstar now. We've kind of had the back and forth. There's been plenty of evidence to both sides, and you've been able to make your arguments. I will say one thing, and it's like my closing argument to the whole debate.
Okay.
Superstars close.
Okay.
And I think AD has shown enough times this year, just like every other superstar, he's had moments where he has not closed, and that happens to everybody. But he has closed enough times, I think, since he's become a Laker, at least that I've seen, that he deserves that label. I mean, he closed with the dagger three, and then some guys could have given up an easy bucket, give Miami some sort of glimmer of hope. No, he sends Butler's shot out of bounds. It ges right back on the defensive end. So I think that locks away that argument. I know you differ. I know you're going to have things to say, but to me, that's what really defines the superstars. Can you close late? Are you afraid of the big moment? AD can close, and he's not afraid, and I'm happy to have him in purple and gold.
Yeah, listen, like my brand at this point is hating on AD. I don't know. I guess that's what I'm best known for at this point. And I made clear to make the point last time that AD has been the best player in this series and was basically leading that Lakers team in those first 2 games. He was the most pivotal piece for the Lakers team in the first 2 games because of, in that game 1, how dominant he was against Bam, who is a great player and matched up better in this game and hopefully is better on Friday after having a little bit more rest on his arm or on his neck or whatever. And then in game 2, obviously being just as incredible as LeBron in that game as well. I agree with you that superstars do close and they do hit big shots. Where I differ from you is that superstars bounce back after bad games and have good games. He did not have a good game yesterday. He was okay at best. I don't think he was good. And LeBron, in all frankness, is not good either. And he did not bounce back after game 3 as well. Both of these guys should have showed up yesterday and had 30 each. They did not. LeBron in that first half, he was atrocious. 5 turnovers. That was one of the worst quarters/halves that I've ever seen LeBron James play. It was terrible to watch. And, both these guys can make their own shots and get their own shots whenever they want. And they just didn't seem to be asserting themselves the way that they needed to in that first half. You do have to give credit to Miami's defense. They stepped up, and having Bam there obviously does bother both of those guys.
They play hard.
It makes it harder to attack the basket. That being said, when AD comes off a game where he's 15 points, is in foul trouble the entire game and is basically the key. And I made clear to say that AD being out of that game was the key, and that's why they lost that game. For him to not respond in a dominant way, I know he hit the big shots, but he should have gone out there and he should have asserted himself from the get-go, and he did not do that. He showed up late, but he was not there for the full stretch, and that's been my biggest thing about AD is he's never there for the full stretch. A lot of times it is on the defensive end, and that's why I was kind of hesitant to say that he's a deserving defensive player of the year, because he checks out on defense. LeBron does too. That's why LeBron doesn't deserve it anymore either. LeBron used to give his all on the defensive end, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but he doesn't anymore. AD's kind of got that same mentality. He has the talent to be a superstar. The reason I say he's not a superstar is because he just doesn't go out there and prove it on the court. And it's evident in his numbers. Like 22 points and 9 rebounds is not superstar numbers after having a bad game where you're a big part of why your team lost, not because you're not on the court, or not because you are on the court, but because you're not on the court and you got yourself into foul trouble. You need to go out there and make a statement early. And against Bam, who's coming back, you want to sort of set the tone you did in game one, where you hold him to under 10 points and you dominate him on the offensive end, scoring 30 points in that game one, right? He had, was it 32? I think it was in game one, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think so.
Something like that. You want to go out there and you want to make that statement from the get-go, and he did not do that. And you know, I'm being hard on AD. I'm going to be just as hard on LeBron here, because LeBron, those passes were atrocious. It was
2011 Heat Mavs finals LeBron in the first half. It
was worse than that. This, like I'm saying, I've never seen LeBron checked out. And you sort of messaged in our group text that you thought like something's going on, like something, you know, maybe he's injured, something's going on.
I was trying to do something to reverse the mojo.
And you know, I was not ready to go that far, but I was like, something's definitely off. He's just not focused. And he did turn the focus around. He had a much better second half. But he is just as much at fault as to why this game was as close as it was and why these teams had to go down to the wire. It's because, actually more on him even than AD, because he needs to be – the biggest thing for him is being a playmaker. And if you're turning the ball over 5 times and a half, like, that is not good. That's not good at all. And I understand you're going to respond. And then he hit those big shots. But then he kept chucking them. He kept chucking them from like the logo. And it was just like, what are you doing? You're not making them anymore. You made a couple and now you're done. And luckily, Rajon Rondo was there to tip off like 3 or 4 offensive rebounds on LeBron 35-footers. And those are just not smart shots by LeBron. It was just not a smart game. I don't know what he's doing. He was just completely unfocused, and luckily, guys, Danny Green had 10 points. I didn't even notice he had 10. I didn't even realize he scored at all. I was kind of shocked when I looked at this stat line. Then
Rondo coming up, are ugly.
Yeah, but Rondo coming up with the big rebounds. Kuzma having a good game again. Like, he only hit 3 threes, I believe it was, but they were 3 threes that came at pivotal points in the game where they shifted the momentum back in LA's favor. Those were big for them. Dwight Howard still looks like a disaster out there. I don't know why Frank Vogel continues to start him. And in those first 2 games, AD was most successful at the center position. He was thriving at that center position. The fact that Vogel still continues to play Dwight Howard, I'm not quite sure what the decision is there. Just sub him out. Markieff Morris was better yesterday as well. It was an overall better performance by the role players, but when the stars are not showing up, it's going to be a tight game. We made clear in this, like at the start of the series, that the role players for both teams are going to be pivotal. And when for LA, you sort of say that because you expect LeBron and AD to show up every single night. And when they don't show up 2 games in a row, that's tough. And you make the point of Dragic, he did try to go yesterday. If he's back for the next game, that little slip up and those 2 guys not being locked in and coming, the
margin for error is much more.
It's tiny. It's tiny, and I'm a little bit scared. Last time I wasn't scared, even though LA had come off the loss. This time they're coming off the win, and I'm a little bit scared because I didn't see what I expected to see out of them in this response game 4. I don't know.
Well, I guess like if you're to play devil's advocate with it, is like they didn't necessarily show. Like I was with you before the game. I tweeted, I was like, they should have a Kobe Shaq like finals type of combined game where they just go out and dominate, and it doesn't really matter what Miami does, and they didn't do that. So I guess the positive silver lining to it is like they didn't do that until they didn't dominate until late. It took them forever to get going. They were sloppy all game, and they still were able to pull it out. So it's like if they can reach that level, you can't really bet against LeBron not doing it, right? I mean, as much as I'm not Team LeBron, he has generally shown up in these moments, especially the latter half of this decade. So I feel like you have to like bet on him to show up again. I think they're still continuing to make adjustments with AD, because I know Miami's trying a bunch of different things. Obviously, they've had some Bam on him when he was in the game, but then also they've had smaller guys like Crowder and stuff. But they've been like keeping guys like other guys near him, so that way if the ball does go into the post, they're able to double quickly, and they're using that smaller lineup to kind of hedge in, quick trap, and then still be able to rotate the shooters. So I think they're still trying to figure out how to get him the ball, because they weren't getting the ball in like the deep position that I would like to see to get him easy baskets. Because obviously he gets the ball around the rim. It really doesn't matter who he's guarding. He's shooting like 75% in the playoffs from within like 5 feet, but they haven't been getting him a lot of touches in that area, at least in the last 2 games. And I think that's been part of the problem too, because then he's settling for jumpers, and his jumper is very good when it's on, but it's not always on. And it's usually, if he's out there shooting a jumper, they have nobody inside for the rebound, and that's like a one and done possession. So they definitely have some work to do on that end. I will say, it's kind of like we talked about, also going the keys for game 4. I said we needed LeBron and AD to show up, and we needed like one, maybe two bench guys, or not bench guys, but like role players to show up. And I got to give credit to Caldwell Pope. Like he played well. He played well on defense. I thought him and Rondo Caruso, I thought did a really good job, and even Kuzma to an extent. Kuzma isn't always like the best technically sound defender, but he does give effort, especially in these finals.
Oh yeah.
But those 3 guards in general, so Rondo, Caruso, and Caldwell Pope, I thought in that end of the 3rd, early 4th, they were chasing Hero and Robinson and Kendrick Nunn around a ton of screens. I thought they had some really good defensive possessions as a team where they were forcing either shot clock violation or just bad shots at the end of the shot clock. So I thought defensively they did a good job there. They were active, they were communicating, kind of really doing what Miami always does, right? LA has never that's not been like their defensive MO all year. They've relied on kind of AD to be the safety valve, and you just kind of hope that guys miss open shots. But they really kind of cranked it up there in the 4th, which allowed them to get missed shots, get in transition, and then Caldwell Pope. I mean, it's a huge corner 3 to put them up, I think, 5 or 6 with 2.5 to play. And then the next possession, whatever play they run stutters. LeBron has the ball with 6 seconds left, tosses it to Caldwell Pope, and I'm thinking, oh God, he's going to chuck a 3. No, nice little rip and go to the rim. Obviously, it's on Duncan Robinson, not like a perimeter, stud, but he still made the move, didn't settle, got by him. And Robinson came pretty close to blocking it and just threw a little extra something on it and, went in. And the next, that's a 7-point game. I'm not going to say it's like, the end of the game right there, but it's, being down 7 as opposed to, 4 or 5 or 3 is a huge difference, especially late in that game. So I thought he played really well. And then, Danny Green, some of his misses are awful. Like I don't know what to do with him. I don't know what's going on. I'll take money that he'll have an off-season surgery. It'll be lower body. I guarantee it. But he hit some shots when needed. And then I thought, Kuzma, he, like you mentioned, timely shots. He didn't hit a lot of them, but the ones he hit were when they needed to go on a run, when they needed to stop a Miami run and kind of keep it close. So that matters more so than the volume. And, then you have Rondo, who doesn't score until the last 70 seconds of the game, but it's a huge bucket. He gets to the rim, kind of draws the defenders away and scores. And then the next possession does the pick and roll with AD, gives AD just a little bit of enough space. And it's crazy how you think about basketball, every sport really is a game of inches, right? Football, you're inches away from catching, dropping. Baseball, same thing. Basketball, the same thing too. Like AD just gave a little jab on Bam and he stumbled for a quick second. And if we did that, we're at 6. I'm 6'1". I don't know how tall you are. We're still probably getting
much shorter than that.
We're still probably getting blocked by Bam because he still got out there for a decent contest. But AD being 6'11", that little jab step gave him just that extra space where he was comfortable shooting that. I think he didn't have Bam all up in his grill like he would have been if he didn't do that little move. And so it's all the little things that make the difference. And obviously you mentioned Rondo getting rebounds. Rondo and Caruso, I think, are fantastic. I think Jeff Van Gundy called them opportunistic offensive rebounders, which I think those guys have been really annoying in the finals, but I think that's a great way to describe those guys because they're obviously not going to be like your Montrezl Harrell and these other dudes coming in just, clamoring the boards all game. But those long rebounds that kind of go out to that mid-foul line area around the circle, they are phenomenal at getting in there, reading where the ball's going, and either tipping it to a teammate or just grabbing the rebound and obviously giving them an extra possession. So it's those kind of little plays and those executions down the stretch that have helped LA all year, and it really helped them last night. So you're going to need the same thing again, game 5. I know that's kind of where we're going with the preview, but they got to do the same thing again. And I think Dragic is going to play, and I think he's going to be huge because while Nunn is quick and he's been in a little bit of a rhythm, he's kind of a dud on defense. And on offense, he can the ball can stop with him sometimes, which I think is obviously not what Spoelstra wants. So I think Dragic being in there, getting back in his rhythm, facilitating, being obviously a good 3-point threat is going to make LA's margin for error even more slim. They're going to need everybody to come out from the get-go. LeBron, AD, Caldwell Pope, all those guys, they're going to have to play a full 48 minutes. And I don't think we've seen that from LA. I don't think we've come close to seeing that from LA in these finals at all. I'd be lucky if we've seen 40 minutes because even in game 1, they blew the lead, but they let it dwindle down to 18, 17 after 35.
It was not as close as the final score would have led you to believe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that LA needs to really come out. You have nothing else to play for but a title. You're one win away. You got to come out and play a full 48 minutes, whether that means LeBron's taking less rest. I know him and AD played most of the third. LeBron only took a quick 80-second rest, and then he was kind of back out there. AD took like a 3-minute rest to start the fourth instead of his usual 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what you got to do, right? You're going to be a little tired, but you got to play more minutes. You know, Butler is going to play 45 minutes a game. Bam, hopefully he's still healthy, and he's going to play probably another 10 more minutes than he did last night. So, they're going to get everything thrown at them in Game 5. There's no doubt about that. I still have confidence they can win. I think when you have the 2 best players in the series, which I think LeBron and AD still are. Jimmy's gave him a run for his money, but he's still third. I think when you have those guys, if they can, they need, like, I'm talking a vintage, like Shaq and Kobe and like the 0-2 finals against the Nets was like their peak, like athleticism, unstoppable, type of game. Shaq would have 35 and 15, Kobe would have like 28, 7 and 7. That's what you need from those guys, I think, on Friday, and I'm hoping that they bring it.
To carry off of that point, what LA needs to do is exactly that, because KCP, Kuzma, Morris, Danny Green, they're not going to score as much as they did in this game. I highly doubt that you're going to get as good of a game as you got from your role players in this game.
And it's a closeout game, so you got to think of it like it's Kuzma's first closeout for the title. Danny Green's been there, so I might give him the benefit of the doubt. But like Markieff Morris, Kuzma, Caruso, like I don't know how those guys can be counted on. They're going to be a little tight. It's Game 5, a chance to close out.
Even more than it being a closeout game, most of these guys have not been reliable for 2 games in a row in these entire playoffs. Right. That's what's the biggest concern.
They have no clue game to game.
Exactly. But you do assume that at least LeBron, and I imagine AD as well, will come out with that sort of focus. I mean, I said that for Game 4, so I'm hoping it carries over into the next game as well. But like, for that closeout game, especially for LeBron, he comes out there, he's focused, he drops 30 or whatever, and is really setting the tone from the get-go. That is going to be pivotal for this LA team. And if it doesn't happen, if they have a wash game like they did in this game, even though they won, or at least a wash first half, I won't say full game, but at least a wash first half, like, it could spell trouble. It could spell trouble, especially if Dragic is back in the lineup. And you do have to give, like, you look at Miami's numbers. Jimmy started off pretty strong, and then LA made the switch to put AD on him. But, he was killing Dwight inside. He was killing basically everybody inside that wasn't AD or LeBron. So AD was definitely there on the defensive end, stopping Butler. You imagine is going to be a little bit better. He's solid, all things considered. I thought he was better than he would have been after that injury, so I was pretty happy with the way to see him play. But Kelly Olynyk dropped off the map yesterday, only having like 4 points or whatever it was.
Right.
You imagine that he's going to score the ball a little bit better, shoot the ball a little bit better. Hero and Robinson, you got sort of a standard performance from each of them, but those 2 guys. I know what you're saying in that this is like a big moment for these young guys, but we've seen it time and time again from Miami that they're not rattled by these moments. They're going to show up. Hero and Robinson, both those guys are due for a crazy game in this series because they haven't quite had it. Hero's been okay, but he's not shooting the ball that well. Duncan Robinson's been in and out, sort of, and he got into foul trouble in one game and whatnot. Like he's not playing all that. Neither of these guys have been consistent as they were through the first 3 rounds. And, it's expected. LA has some good defenders that they're going to put on them. But these guys are due for a good game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes in a Game 5 where they need to protect their season and save their season. Biggest point being, I guess, through all of this is I wouldn't be surprised if this series is extended beyond just a Game 5. Although, if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say the Lakers, but I'm not ready to count out this Miami team yet. And this Miami team has me having more faith in them now than they did through the rest of this series coming to this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's going to be, there won't be, I don't think there's a world where LA blows out Miami in Game 5. I think there's a world where they win by 5 or 6. I think there's a world where Miami wins by 5 or 6. And I think there's also probably a 10 to 15% chance they could blow them out of the water because the team's playing, backs against the wall 3-1. I mean, you're playing with house money, right? You have nothing to lose. There's nothing that you can do that's going to be like, oh, well, maybe this won't work next game. Like, you just got to put it all on the line. Sure. And Miami's good enough that they can harness that desperation and still play smart. So it's like I said, it's going to take a full 48 minutes. It's going to take LeBron being LeBron. It's going to take AD being the AD from the first 2 games on both ends of the floor. And it's going to take, again, it's going to take 1 to 2 guys, role guys stepping up, whether it's Danny Green finally breaking open, whether it's Kuzma taking on a big role, Markieff Morris, whoever it is, they got to get going. I've kind of lost faith in Rondo's offensive. He hit his peak in that last series against Denver and really against Houston. So I don't think we're going to see the shooting again. It hasn't been very good in these finals at all. Yeah. So I'm not really thinking on him. Caruso's too nice to shoot too many shots. He's that guy at the rack that's just keep the ball moving. Yeah. So it's really going to come down to Caruso or Caldwell Pope, Markieff Morris, Kuzma, and Danny Green. And we need
Yep.
2 of those 4 to have like 15 to 17 points and hit timely shots.
That's a lot to ask.
It is a lot to ask, but you're getting paid a lot of money and it's the finals. And if you do it, you win a title. And that's what their end goal is. So I'm hoping the LA comes out motivated. I mean, I don't like really talking about it and bringing it up, but like they're doing the whole Black Mamba jersey thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm like they haven't lost to them. Fantastic. I know why they're wearing them. I don't like to like hype it up too much, but they are doing that, so they're already pretty focused on it. So, we'll see what happens. It's we'll see. Again, there's so many things I think they're going to happen in the next 48 hours. Whether it's Dragic being cleared to play, Bam being cleared to play more. Excuse me. So we'll see.
And that extra day of rest is pretty key for Dragic as well because
I think it's huge. I think that seals it. I think if it was just one day and off, he still probably wouldn't be able to go. I think in 2 days, I think he's going to be able to. He'll find a way. Whether it's 10 minutes or 20, he'll find a way to get out there. And sure. I think he maybe on defense won't be very good, but offensively, if he can be a little bit of a catalyst and a jump spark, plus just the emotional lift of him and Bam being back. Those are Bam's the heart and soul, really, along with Jimmy, of that team, and Dragic is this veteran who they've been all you think about it their way. They're trying to get guys like Dragic, Haslam, Butler, like these guys who are just over 30. They're trying to get these guys, a ring, right? You never know how many chances you have. So all those young guys are going to be playing hard for those guys as well. It's tough to not only go up against Miami physically, but mentally and emotionally, it's a huge boost too.
I'm curious what you think of this comment because I was here saying that I think these guys, at least one of them, is due for a game going off. Do you agree with me, or do you kind of agree with Justin in the comments?
I think I know Justin. I think it's I think Hero is definitely more likely to go off. I think he went off in that fourth. I mean, he had 12 points in the fourth. He had the floater over AD that
all the way up and
down. One of his threes was the garbage time one, so he really only had like 9 fourth quarter points, but still. I think he can. I think he has like the utmost confidence of anybody. And not that Duncan does it. Like Duncan is not afraid to shoot it, and I think he still gets the shots off. But I feel like sometimes when he starts missing, he starts getting in his own head because he doesn't want to shoot his team out of a game. So he starts to be a little bit more passive. Whereas Hero's like, I'm 0 for 8. I'm taking the next one. Like if they Spose draws up the play for me, I'm going to shoot it. So I think you're going to get like a split. Like I think Duncan could go like 3 of 8 again. And I think Hero could easily go like 10 of 17 and score 25 points. Like I think that's more realistic than seeing both of them be cold or both of them be hot. I think you're going to get one hot, one cold.
And the other thing that I kind of want to, I guess, close things out on based on the discussion, and this is going back to the LeBron turnovers thing, and I guess the AD slander, if you want to continue that sort of thing. But there was a stat that I tossed to you guys in our chat before the game started, and it was about AD's touches and the fact that he had 25% of his touches came in the paint in games 1 and 2 and only 10% in game 3. And that really stood out to me because, and this is something that I've complained about on this podcast, is something that I've complained about to you in private. It's this whole AD playing in the mid to high post, outside the lane, back to the basket, this ISO ball. He might shoot the ball well in those situations. He's a good one-on-one scorer, but is that what LA needs here? I don't think so. And that contributed a lot. LeBron is usually good at making those passes, but he was forcing a lot of those high posts, and AD was even out of the 3 at a few of those, and LeBron was 35 feet out trying to force these passes in, and they were just ugly passes. I want them to get AD started even on a pick and roll, or get him started closer to the basket early. Let him work inside out. You hear it all the time of working big guys inside out. Let them find their shot later in the game. Get them easy baskets, get them layups, get them dunks, get them pick and rolls, whatever it may be. That's kind of what I want to see LeBron and AD doing, and that's what you saw a lot of Kobe and Shaq doing. Shaq was never outside the lane, and AD is a very different player from Shaq. Shaq was so dominant inside.
They made a point though, like right away, to get him the ball early and often. I
want to see that sort of presence from them. I completely agree with you that I want to see the Kobe Shaq sort of combination, but I want to see that type of presence where these two guys making the statement in that first quarter, AD attacking the basket, LeBron throwing a couple lobs to him, let him dunk a few on Bam's head, send the message early. That's what I want to see, and I think that's going to be pretty important for LA, I think, at least.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. I think that's what they have to do, and especially, I think even more so than AD. Obviously the goal is to get AD going early, which is always, I think, the Lakers' goal. You look at that, LeBron always kind of defers in the first
every
quarter.
single game. It's every single game they give him that high post, and he does create and he does make the shots. But
Yeah.
I think they're better when he's playing a little bit closer to the basket than
Agreed, and the ball just has to move more. They have so many stagnant possessions in the first half, and still finished with 25 assists. I've really been, happy all year. They've done a really good job of, obviously LeBron's getting you 10 assists a game, so that helps. But even like their other guys, like Rondo's been able to create. Like some of the Caldwell Pope has been somewhat decent in the series. Like he's not going to run pick and roll every possession, but he's smart enough to make some of the passes. So they just have to keep the ball moving, get AD in the spots that he's comfortable with, especially early in the game. And he's obviously going to get going. And, this is again, I'm not always team LeBron, but like this is his moment. He's done well in these closeouts. You've seen it all throughout the playoffs. I expect, I'm not saying he's going to put up like 35-6 or 38-16 and 10 like he did against Denver. I don't think he's got I think Miami's too good to let him do that. Mm-hmm. But I need something, I need close to 30 points. I need 10 assists. Like he needs to be responsible for like 60 points on the floor type of deal. And he's got to set the bar. He's got to at least set the bar early, whether it's with playmaking, whether it's with the defensive play. Like he's got to set the bar in his own way. If he's going to defer to AD, he still has to set the tone and get himself going. Early. I do want to ask one, and I feel like I'm sounding like we're on first take with this, but I haven't really like cared to discuss it a lot because to me at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But I was thinking about it. You've had 2 really good AD games. You've had 2, I think, really good LeBron games, and you've had like 2 games combined maybe where they both have kind of not been at their best. Would you say like Game 5, assuming LA wins, of course? Are those 2 like? Would that decide the MVP for the finals, or are you leaning one way right now?
I'm leaning LeBron most certainly. LeBron stats across the board have been much better than AD's.
Is it a lean, or is it like he's like way over like percentage, like 1 to 10, like 1 to 10? Like what are you at right now?
7.
7. Okay.
7. I'm not saying AD can't take it, especially if he comes out there and has like a 40 and 15 game in that Game 5. I think that could be enough to give it to AD. But I think LeBron, if you're looking at AD numbers, he's still averaging, even though he's not playing well in those couple games, his numbers were much better than AD in those 2 games where he played poorly, and they were still like triple doubles or near triple doubles. Yeah. So LeBron's stat line across the board is still much better than AD's, and LeBron is the leader of this team. He is the best player on this team. And I understand, though, I get frustrated with the whole finals MVP thing because you often hone in on an entire series sometimes. Sometimes you hone in on the entire playoffs. It's just kind of all over the place. I don't love the finals MVP.
Yeah, the writers buy it. That's what I think AD would have to have like literally like a 40 and 20 game.
Yeah, exactly.
And just dominate because you have like Brian Windhorst and all these other guys who are like LeBron. They're buddies with LeBron. Like,
they are, yeah.
And so I'm sure they've already penciled it in.
What's the total number of media that votes on Finals MVP? Because much smaller than any other voting body, right?
I'll tell you that much.
It's somewhere. I want to say it's somewhere between like 7 and 12, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a lot.
I know Hubie Brown is one of the guys. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's a really weird group. I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here.
No, I'm trying. It's a really good question. I am trying to look it up. It just says 11. Okay.
11. Okay, so 7 and 12 was right.
It is Wikipedia, but I feel like no one's going in there and screwing with the Wikipedia for the Finals MVP. That's super random.
Does it have the names by any chance, or is it just given?
I think it just says. Yeah, it just says a panel of 11 members who cast votes after the conclusion of the finals.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of who else is going to be on that panel. I don't know if any of like even these sidelouter pros, like maybe Rachel Nichols is on there or something. I'm trying to think, and Hubie's always on there because he's the one that always throws that weird vote. Like that somebody looks at the breakdown, and they're always like, "Who the hell gave like?" Matthew Dellavedova, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like who the hell? It would have been somebody like a Hubie because Hubie has no idea what he's doing. But
or like how enough of them voted Steph Curry, not for Steph Curry. And
I think Windhorst is in there. McMenamin might be in there. He's also an LA LeBron guy, so he's got that sort of attachment. He came from Cleveland to LA to cover LeBron. I'm not sure exactly if I'm being completely honest with you, but
it's some of them. I think they'll show it after the finals too.
They will, and it changes. It definitely does change. So it might not be consistent.
I agree with you though. Like I wasn't like saying that to try and like make a case for AD. I think LeBron is, for me. If you're at like a 7 out of 10, I'm probably like a 6.5. Like I definitely still lean LeBron.
Yeah.
I think AD having the foul trouble really. You look at the numbers because it's always going to be numbers. narrative and then like actual performance. And I honestly, I think it's that order because like I think performance doesn't always matter. It's all about the numbers and the narrative. Like that's the reason why Iggy won.
LeBron's got the narrative too, because remember the whole thing after the MVP thing happened where he was talking about I only got 16 MVP votes.
Plus he's 35. Like, he's doing this, blah blah blah. So I think he's got all those things going for him. But again, I think there's a world where AD steals it with it have to be like a 40 and 20 with like 4 blocks, or if it's close down the stretch and AD just like dominates with that. But that now the good news is I could care less because I just want the win. I just get it done. I don't care who gets it done. If Caldwell Pope drops 40, I'll give him a vote. Just get it done. Like, I don't care. I was just curious, but it'll be interesting for sure. I mean,
I think it's a much tighter race than people are sort of thinking at this point, if we're being completely honest. Because you're at like a 6.5, I'm at a 7, but that could so easily swing the other way.
And it's weird too because I feel like we haven't had really a race like that, right? I mean, maybe Stephen Durant. But Durant was still
Katie was pretty much running away.
Katie was still like Steph was the only one that was like, hey, if you're gonna make a case for somebody else, this guy's pretty freaking good too. But like usually it's like like last year, Kawhi and like Fred VanVleet, like come on, LeBron when he's had his titles, it's Kyrie was I'll be honest, I think I gave Kyrie a ton of credit for games like 5 through 7 because I thought he was just as phenomenal. He just wasn't tall enough to get all the rebounds. Like, but other years, you've had like semi-broken down Wade or Chris Bosh. You've had with the Spurs, it was like Kawhi or like Tim Duncan. Like it wasn't like two outstanding stat lines. So it's rare that we have this. Where you have two superstars, as I will say, competing for it. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, even with the Spurs when Kawhi was kind of the dominant player in that, I mean, you might even have to look as far back as like the early 2000s when you had the Lakers and the Pistons and those teams winning championships where you find races that are that competitive. Because you look at probably since LeBron's first finals in 2007, Tim Duncan won it that year.
No, that was it. They got it wrong. Tony Parker won it that year.
Tony Parker won it
because he lit up your Boobie Gibson and whoever for 30 games. It was like, but Duncan was still like 25 and 12.
Exactly.
Better competition.
Yeah, I think that you have to go as far back as then, because since then, it's the whole entire thing of these all of these final series has been like the stars of the final.
I think it is like it's like Kobe, Shaq, and it was one of those things like Shaq was just so dominant and going up against, to be honest, like Todd McCullough, like 35-year-old Dikembe. So like he had some feet. So he was averaging like 36 and 17.
First off, Shaq was the best player in the league in the early 2000s. There's no doubt about it. But Kobe was spectacular, and this goes back to the point that you're making about those two guys have to be like the one. They have to prove that they're the 1 and 2 players in the league. If that's sort of what they rode their coattails on the entire season. LA, I know Giannis won MVP, and there are players like Luka and Harden and these guys making the case. LA, this entire season, Lakers fans this entire season have been saying we have the 2 best players in the entire league in LeBron and AD. And I don't think they proved it this season. They were 2 best players in the entire league. But I think that this could be their chance to be like, we are the 2 best players in the entire league and make their statement in this closeout game, lock it away early, like put them up at 15-20 in the first quarter, first half, whatever it may be. I don't see that happening, but I don't either. That'd be great. That's what I'm like sort of honing in on. If you're going to make a case that these 2 guys are the actual 2 best players in the league, that's what needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, do you have, to be honest, I'm not sure what our schedule is going to be. I know Friday's a busy day for everybody. Do you have like any early predictions? Let's assume, for argument's sake, I really think Dragic is going to play, and obviously Ban's going to keep playing. Let's assume those guys are in. What does that do for you for your prediction? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I'm thinking about it because I'm kind of honing in on the one thing that earlier.
Let's just say Dragic, if he's playing 15 to 20 minutes. I don't think he would go much more than that based on. But
the point I was about to make is I want to hone in on the morale boost that you talked about earlier, and just seeing their 2 guys that went out in game 1 coming back, and the sort of energy that would bring to the rest of the Heat supporting cast. Because I'm not putting money on it, I'll say if Dragic is back, I'll say the Lakers. The Heat. I want LeBron to close it out in game 5. I want him to sort of make his statement and be like 35, 10 and 10. Let's just get this thing over with. I want to go home and see my kids. It's my son's birthday today. Like,
gotta whoop Bronny.
Yeah, exactly. So like, that's what I want to see. Because I'm not putting any money on it, and I don't feel like I'm losing any street cred on it. I'll say the Heat just because the Dragic morale boost that definitely sort of stuck in my head.
You want to punish me? Okay.
Yeah.
You want to make me suffer for another day.
Listen, I'm rooting for LeBron as much as you're rooting for the Lakers because I'm the biggest LeBron fan in the world. But like, I want a fun series at the same time. I want
That's
LeBron
fair.
to get his ring, but I want it to be in an entertaining way. So what do you got, though?
That's fair. I'm going off of the same criteria.
Mm.
I do think Dragic gives them a morale boost, and I think Miami does start out pretty fast. I think they're probably. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 17-6 at like the first media break, and you're like, oh, what the heck's going on?
That's how game one started, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It was 23-10.
Yeah.
So I will say this. So everything I've been super consistent all playoffs. I've said Lakers in 6 every series. It's gone to 5, and in that fifth game, either LeBron and or AD has shown up. So I would think even with as much boost that Miami's going to have with those guys back, I think LA can make enough plays down the stretch, and I think LeBron and AD will be better, which is like the big thing. Is they made enough plays down the stretch yesterday without LeBron and AD being necessarily great all game, and if they can just be 10 to 15% better throughout the regular part of the game and still execute down the stretch, especially when I think Hero and those guys, like Hero could have a game where he's having like 25, and I just talked about how like he wouldn't care and he'd keep shooting, but like 2 minutes to go, potential game where you could lose the finals and be done, and it's tied. Like I don't know, like do you want a 20-year-old taking the shot? Maybe he makes it, maybe he doesn't. I just like if I'm him, like something does get to you eventually. So I don't know if I trust a lot of those guys besides Jimmy. Whereas with LA, I would trust LeBron and AD to make some plays. And even as some crappies he's been, even Danny Green, because he has at least some experience. So I think LA is going to win a close one. I think it'll be somewhere. I think I overshot the score last game, although I think the like differential was pretty close. But I would say somewhere in like the. I would say what was it? It was 1-2-96. So I would say somewhere in like the 108 to 101 or even 108 104. It could be real tight. But I'm hoping, man. I mean, I've tried to be as unbiased and objective as I can all playoffs. Other than the jokes and the props, it's for fun.
No, it's fun.
But you've seen me talk offline. Like I've had buddies that are like, yo, like after game 2, he's like, who do you think's win the finals MVP? And I'm like, I only care about game 3. Like I literally don't even want to talk about this right now. So I've been waiting all year. I'm hoping they do it. I want a reason to celebrate. It's been a long year with the break, with the bubble, with everything that happened with the Lakers this year that we don't need to go into. Like there's been so much that's going on. So I'm hoping that they come out with those jerseys, they play hard, and I think they're going to get a win.
Mamba jerseys are key here. They're undefeated in the Mamba jerseys.
Undefeated.
They've got a mission. And you were playing devil's advocate a little bit earlier in the show. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here because if you had a gun to my head, I would say the Lakers because I don't bet against LeBron. But I
got 2.
But just because we're having a little bit of fun here, I'll pick the Heat just so we're on different page there too.
So I know who to blame. Got it.
Yeah, you know who to blame, or you know who to bag on Twitter when the Lakers do win on the next game. But yeah, they certainly do have a mission. They know what they're fighting for, and I don't expect as bad of a game from LeBron or AD in this one. I really just can't see those guys going 3 duds in a row. If either of those guys go 3 duds in a row, they're going to lose a lot of my respect, if I'm being completely honest with you. In the finals, you just can't do that, especially at this stage of your career where AD is trying to cement his legacy and LeBron is trying to cement his legacy on a different level. Like, you just can't do that, and that's going to be key. Right. That's going to be key, but it'll be fun to watch. We're kind of unsure, I guess, at this point, whether or not we're going to go live Friday right after the game. I guess we'll have to see what sort of emotional state Jordan's in.
We'll see what happens.
What sort of, if he's sober or not, I guess we'll just have to wait and see about that. So either Friday night or Saturday, or morning or afternoon is looking like the plan. And then looking ahead to next week, if the series does close out here, we'll kind of do like a season wrap up as a whole. We'll talk about the bubble as a whole.
I think a bubble recap is definitely there's a lot to talk about there.
And so we'll
talk about to unwrap.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm done.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of that to sort of get into. So we'll be back next week. And then in the off season, we have some plans as well to keep the show going. So just keep an eye out for that. But you can find us at our social medias, which are underneath our faces.
And the store.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Team NBS, teamnbsmerch.com. Or if you go to Bonfire, and the link is right there. Thank you, Jordan. You can find all our merch. We've got sweatshirts, we got tees, we got all the slogans that our website uses, a lot of great stuff. So we urge you all to go there and check out that. We'll be back here, I guess, either Friday or Saturday talking maybe the end of the NBA season. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So come back and join